One final edition of Locked On Eagles before the Eagles-Giants divisional round playoff matchup Sunday night at 8:15. Darius Slay wrote an awesome article for the Player Tribune talking about this run. I want to dive into that. Plus, are any long-term Eagles core members of the team mulling this season being their final ride? All that and more, including LOE3 presented by BetOnline on this Friday edition of Locked On Eagles.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's go, everybody. Last one. Welcome in. Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. It's a Friday edition of the show, and it's sponsored by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Tomorrow is the start of the playoffs for the Philadelphia Eagles. 8:15 kickoff at Lincoln Financial Field against the NFC East rival New York Giants. I'm sure all of you plan on being there, though, a lot sooner than 8:15, tailgating down at the Link in South Philadelphia. If you're out of town, I'm sure you've got watch parties going on. Or if you're a crazy psycho like me, who gets very nervous during the start of the playoffs, even if you're a one seed, even if it's the favorable, ideal matchup to get against the 6 seed Giants, you still like to start the playoffs in solitude because you're kind of a crazy person. That's me. I like to watch the first playoff game by myself, get out all those nerves, get that big win, and then head down to Philadelphia to celebrate, hopefully, them winning an NFC championship and then eventually a Super Bowl. But wherever and whenever you're watching tomorrow, enjoy the game. And thanks as always for tuning into Locked On Eagles. We're free and available Monday through Friday on all podcast platforms and on YouTube as well. So exciting that the Eagles in just one day could be in the NFC title. That's the opportunity in front of them with getting that bye week. They skip over the wild card round. They get the Giants tomorrow. If they can handle business right now, 7.5-point favorites, according to BetOnline, then they are going to the NFC Championship for the first time since 2017. Such an exciting opportunity that Philadelphia has. And I think you can tell the players know it. They know the opportunity. They know the history that they could make today and the opportunity in front of them. They know that they have one of the, if not the most talented teams in franchise history with this 2022 roster. And that was definitely represented in that awesome story. I'm sure you guys read it already from Darius Slay. He wrote an article for the Players Tribune, really diving into the culture of this Eagles locker room right now, the bond that he has with his teammates and with Nick Sirianni as a head coach, and how Jalen Hurts is ready for this moment at quarterback. It was such an awesome tune-up piece for the playoffs that was posted yesterday. And I feel like Slay really hit on so many important things. You know, he talked about how grateful he is for the way that this locker room and the culture is and how far that's come and allowed the Eagles to win 14 games for the first time in franchise history. And more personally for Slay, he talked about how, you know, the culture that Nick Sirianni has dictated allowed him to be himself and be a leader at the same time. He was a leader through his own personality in a natural way, and it's why he became a captain this year. Whereas he talked about when he was with Detroit, and specifically Matt Patricia, who he butted heads on, Patricia wanted his leaders to be a certain way. They wanted a certain mold. It's kind of like a lot of coaches you've heard in the past that are saying, even if it's not leadership, but it's about his scheme or just, you know, the culture in general, and on offense, on defense, what kind of players they want, what kind of personalities. It's, here's what I'm looking for. Do you fit in or not? And Darius Slay kind of talked about how with Nick Sirianni, a younger coach that can relate to his players more, he, and I think this was a huge positive in Doug Peterson as well, that helped them win a title in 2017, even overcoming a lot of, you know, the thing is with this team in 2022 and 2017, there were a lot of newcomers, right? And sometimes that doesn't gel and mesh when you have all these new people coming from different places. Look at the 2011 Dream Team and the 2015 disaster as well with Chip Kelly. You have a lot of new players, and, you know, Slay talked about how Nick Sirianni and Doug Peterson at the time allow his players to dictate the culture. And because he's younger and does relate to these guys more, he understands them more. He lets them be themselves. And in that way, they can be a more natural leader in the way that they would actually do it. And Slay talked about how that's just been so instrumental in them getting as far as they have, being the number one seed and being, to me, the best team throughout the vast majority of the 2022 season. So I thought that was just really awesome to hear. We've known that since Nick Sirianni came in, that he has a lot of that Doug Peterson, Andy Reid, Frank Reich style in him, where he has that emotional intelligence. He's a quote unquote player's coach. And I just think that's my favorite way to manage, not just in football and sports, but everyday life. I just think that's the exact way to do it. Just being open-minded and saying, who do I have on this team? What do they do best? Who are they? Let's put that all together. And it's just so authentic. And I think that's why this locker room is so tight. And Darius Slay, you can tell, is having the time of his life compared to when he was in Detroit. He really only had that 11-5 2014 run with Matt Stafford and Calvin Johnson when they lost in the wild card round to Dallas. And that's really it. Slay sees the opportunity in front of him for his own career and for Philadelphia. Look, he saw in 2020, he was traded to the Philadelphia Eagles, a team that had just made the playoffs 3 years in a row, had just come off a division title win. 3 years before had just won a Super Bowl. Darius Slay thinks he's coming into a well-oiled machine, one of the most consistent teams in the entire NFL. And then he comes in the first year he's with the Eagles, they only win 4 games, right? He knows out of anybody on this football team how fast things can change. And of course, guys like Fletcher Cox know that as well. Brandon Graham, Jason Kelce, everybody, they know the opportunity in front of them. And it's all going to be on the shoulders too of their quarterback, Jalen Hurts. I also loved in the story how Darius Slay talked about Jalen Hurts is just built for this run, that he's so excited to see what Jalen Hurts is going to do in the playoffs. And one moment especially Slay saw that made him think, okay, yeah, our quarterback is built different. He might be 24 years old, but he has the mind, he has the maturity and the preparation of a 37, 38-year-old veteran, Peyton Manning, with the Denver Broncos. And he talked about how, of course, when he first came in 2020 and he heard Jalen Hurts as a rookie talking to the media, he's like, wow, Jalen Hurts is better at this media thing in his first year than I was 4 years into my pro NFL career. But he also talked about this year specifically, one moment where he knew, okay, he's got the stuff not just off the field, but on the field as well when it comes to that composure, that calmness, that confidence, and that clutch gene, where the moment is never too big for him. And it was that final game-winning drive against the Indianapolis Colts where Hurts drove the Eagles down the length of the field. Nothing was working all game. They were just coming off that brutal turnover from A.J. Brown in Colts territory with just 3 minutes to go. You think the game is over. Slay talked about how the Eagles got to stop, and Hurts came back out there, and some offenses, some players, some leaders would be like, totally demoralized after the Brown turnover and thought, there's the game. For the Eagles, for Hurts and for the offense, it didn't rattle them at all. It was just back to business, and Hurts marched them right down the field. I agreed even at the time of that game that was a huge box checked, where we hadn't really seen that moment yet, where late in the fourth quarter, on the road in a hostile environment, you're coming off your first loss of the season. Nothing is working on offense, right? Turnovers, penalties. There was injuries at the time too. Dallas Goedert wasn't playing. You need your quarterback to come through. Nothing else is working. You need them to elevate you for one drive, and not just a field goal is going to do it. No, you have to score a touchdown to win this game. What will he do in that kind of moment? A player that you win literally because of in that moment that elevates your team. What's going to happen? And the fact that Jalen Hurts did it. Yes, it was against the Indianapolis Colts, but considering the way that game was, I'm glad Darius Slay mentioned that as a defining moment of this season. A lot of fans would probably say that was a low point because they were just coming off the Washington loss. They were losing really bad the way they were playing to an inferior opponent. That wasn't a game that when you won, you felt really great about. But I personally did, and Darius Slay did as well, because you saw Jalen Hurts check off another huge box. And I just remember in that moment saying, and I've believed in Jalen in this kind of way really since college. You saw it at Alabama, at Georgia, heck, even his rookie year, that late close game in Arizona against the Cardinals, that Jalen Hurts is built for the moment that if you put him in a playoff game, again, the Colts game was a regular season game halfway through the season, but you put him in a playoff game, maybe it's the NFC title, maybe it's the Super Bowl. I always love to use the case scenario of Super Bowl 52, right? It's 4th and 1. Nick Foles is down by 1 point to Tom Brady and the New England Patriots in his own territory. You don't get this play, it's over. That kind of moment. For some players, it would be way too big for them. Some players would force things and they wouldn't come through. Nick Foles pulled it off. Jalen Hurts, that Colts game was just another example of if he is put in one of those moments in this playoff, and I got news for you, it's going to happen. It might not happen against the Giants, but it could happen in the NFC Championship. And I guarantee you, if not, it's going to happen in the Super Bowl against Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow. If Jalen Hurts is in that moment, I am so confident that he can come through. And so is Darius Slay. That's a huge thing that I'm just really excited about for this playoffs, is just to see Jalen Hurts in these huge stakes situations, right? For a 24-year-old franchise quarterback, to see how he does, to see some of the hints and teases we've gotten over the last few years, even last year against Washington, that it was pretty much a do or die must-win game to make the playoffs. And he had, to me, his best game in the season, especially as a pocket passer. So I'm excited to see Jalen Hurts at the highest level of football this week. And moving forward, if they win in the NFC title, maybe in the Super Bowl, what he can do on that stage. Because last year against Tampa Bay, it was really disappointing. And I was really surprised at just how bad he looked. So I'm really excited to see him get another opportunity and show that the positives he's shown in the past in those moments, like against Indianapolis, he can come through again. So we'll see what happens. Tomorrow kickoff is at 8:15 against the New York Giants. 2 more wins and the Eagles are in the Super Bowl after getting a bye week and now hosting a divisional playoff game. For some core pieces, they're returning from, this is the first time they've had a home playoff game with a bye week as the Super Bowl favorites since 2017. Jason Kelce, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, even Isaac Seumalo, the list goes on. Could this 2022 run be the last for some key Eagles? We'll talk about that coming up next, right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. And guys, today's podcast is presented by LinkedIn Jobs. As a small business owner or hiring manager, you know that success in 2023 all depends on the team members you surround yourself with. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates most efficient by matching open roles with people who have the skills, values, and experiences to help you achieve your goals. LinkedIn Jobs helps you quickly attract qualified candidates to your open job with targeting tools. They go beyond resume data by using insight from your job post, company, and their 875 million member profiles to put your posts in front of the most qualified candidates. Identify the most qualified candidates on LinkedIn Jobs and connect with them fast and for free. LinkedIn Jobs makes it easy to screen and rate applicants based on your job qualifications, all on one platform. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Guys, make sure as well to subscribe to the NFL Locked On NFL podcast and get daily conversations on the biggest NFL stories, plus in-depth analysis on the biggest games with NFL key predictions every Friday. And Monday, local insiders cover the weekend with game-to-game episodes. Locked On NFL, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. This is the last Locked On Eagles podcast until the divisional round of the playoffs tomorrow night. Eagles, Giants. I cannot wait to see the atmosphere at Lincoln Financial Field. Not going to be there live and in person myself until if they make the NFC title game, but just to see on Twitter and on TV, to see the atmosphere, to hear the crowd when Jalen Hurts takes the field for the first time in so many of these beloved Eagles. And I want to talk about a few of the older beloved Eagles because, I talked about in the first segment the opportunity that, a guy like Darius Slay knows that this team has in 2022. They may never have a roster this talented again, right? I think this team is set up for sustained success, but you never know, right? We know that more than any team after seeing what happened after your Super Bowl 52 win in 2017. So Darius Slay knows that. He knows after coming to the Eagles in 2020 how fast a team can fall. Heck, he was with the Detroit Lions for his entire career before coming to Philadelphia. But also, I think a lot of these older players know too that, that's the thing with Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts. Yes, of course, they also are not going to be satisfied if they don't win a Super Bowl this year, and they know they need to capitalize on every opportunity because even some quarterbacks never get back there. I mean, Aaron Rodgers got the one ring and he never got back. Some guys never won the ring. Dan Marino got there once early on in his career and he never got back there. Cam Newton only got back there one time. Russell Wilson, yeah, he went to back-to-back Super Bowls in his first few years in the league, but he hasn't been back since. So the young guys know to capitalize as well, but for them, they're going to have a lot more opportunities. You plan on having Jalen Hurts here for at least another decade if he's going to continue to play like he has in 2022. But for guys like Jason Kelce and Fletcher Cox and even Lane Johnson right now and Brandon Graham and so many of these older pieces that had been with the Eagles through the Andy Reid era and the Doug Peterson era, the Chip Kelly era, now the Nick Sirianni era, they know especially that the time is now. This could be honestly the last run for a lot of that core. I mean, Jason Kelce has been mulling retirement now for the last, six? I mean, his brother Travis Kelce was joking about it on the New Heights podcast with the Kelce brothers. He was even mentioning how Kelce's mulled retirement really since that really bad 2016 season. I mean, after they won the Super Bowl in 2017, he's really thought about it every year. I thought it was going to be the end after 2020. And even last year, I thought it was going to be it again. But he keeps coming back and he continues to be a first-team All-Pro, a Pro Bowler, the best center to me in the entire NFL. But you think if the Eagles win another Super Bowl this year, I think Jason Kelce at that point will say, it will not get any better than this. I have 2 rings. I went through the tough times of 2018 to 2020. I was patient through 2021 with this new core. It paid off. I got another ring. It might be against maybe his brother or one of these incredible AFC teams. Then you beat Tom Brady and another AFC juggernaut to win 2 titles. I mean, I don't know how the story gets better for Jason Kelce. He knows the Eagles have Cam Jurgens waiting in the wings. He's getting into podcasting now. I think this might be the last ride for Jason Kelce based on the scenario, if that they win a championship. But I will say for Jason Kelce, like if they lose a close NFC title game, if they lose a close Super Bowl, Kelce right now he stayed healthy pretty much all year. He got banged up a little bit, but didn't miss a game. He's been the Iron Man of the NFL for the last decade on the offensive line. And he's still still the best at what he does. So does he need to retire next year? No, not at all. I just think if he wins another championship, that's the way he's going to want to go out. But if they lose a close NFC title or a heartbreaking Super Bowl, this isn't a guy that has nothing left to give. Who knows how much longer he could go? That's the thing. Offensive linemen can play for a long time. We saw it with Jason Peters. We're seeing it with Jason Kelce. We've seen it with Lane Johnson at right tackle. Jason Kelce, I think there's an asterisk. I think if they win a title, this will be the last ride. If not, I think you can bet your ass he's coming back for 2023. Then there are some other players, though. I think it's more likely that regardless of the outcome in these playoffs, it might be the last ride. So you look at a guy like Fletcher Cox. Fletcher Cox, I think a lot of people were surprised he came back this year. When they restructured that contract, I thought he was gone. I mean, they cut him and they brought him back on a 1-year deal worth $14 million. But, 2021 wasn't great for Fletch. I mean, he was pretty good at the end of the season, but it was one of his worst years as a pro. And of course, in comparison, he had all pro years all the time before that. So it's always tough to meet that the older you get. But with Fletcher Cox, he comes back, he has a 7-sack season. And now I wonder, even if they don't win a championship and he wants to come back, is Philadelphia going to have him back? That's the thing. The difference with Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelce, with Jason Kelce, the ball is in his court. With Fletcher Cox, it really depends on a few things. Number one, what's he going to command in the open market, right? He's coming off of one of his best seasons since, I would say, 2019, probably. He might have been even better this year than 2019. This is probably his best year since a career season he had in 2018 when he had 10.5 sacks, to be honest with you. Is another team going to be willing to, a defensive tackle needy team that's not as deep as the Eagles are up front? Would they pay him big money? Probably. So that in that way, the ball is kind of in Fletcher Cox's court, but I do believe he wants to be an Eagle. This year, he could have left after they cut him, and he came back on that 1-year deal. I think he knows he's an all-time great here. He probably wants to finish his career with Brandon Graham and wearing midnight green. But for the Eagles, Javon Hargrave is a top 3, maybe top 2 outside of Aaron Donald pass rushing defensive tackle. If they pay him, I can't imagine they're going to pay both him and Fletcher Cox. They like Milton Williams a lot. Jordan Davis is back. They could draft another defensive lineman. You know, they do that every single year. They have 2 first-round picks. This could be the last ride for Fletcher Cox. Maybe not, though. Maybe they let Javon Hargrave walk. Fletcher Cox is the more inexpensive, signing. And then you bring in Milton Williams, who's been having a very underrated season, and he's one of your starters, and you draft another guy. You have Jordan Davis. Maybe you bring back Ndamukong Suh or Linval Joseph, and maybe that's the move. And so that's the thing. It's not the end guaranteed for any of these guys, but Fletcher Cox, I could also see this being his final year with the Eagles. I think a lot of people have been anticipating that eventual departure. So for Fletch, for Kelce, it could be the final rides for sure. For Brandon Graham, I'm not so sure. I think Brandon Graham is going to be an Eagle forever. I think he's going to end his career with Philadelphia, and coming off a career season where he has over double-digit sacks for the first time in his entire career, the Eagles are going to want him back. They know what a leader he is, what a presence he is in that locker room, how good he is on the field right now, and he's perfect in the role he has. At 34 years old, coming off a torn Achilles, he's perfect as that rotating veteran defensive end 3. They love to have that guy. Michael Bennett, Chris Long, Vinny Curry. Now Graham moves into that role from being a starter. I think BG's coming back. So I do not think that this is the last ride for Brandon Graham. It could be, though, for Kelce and Fletcher Cox. And that's why, for me, this playoffs is very important and it's special. I'm going to try to take in all of this because you never know if you're going to ever see these legends again. I mean, look at the honorary captains already for this playoff game are Malcolm Jenkins, Brent Selleck, and Torrey Smith. It feels like just yesterday those guys were some of the heartbeats of your championship team. And, 6 years later, they're honorary captains for potentially the next title team. I mean, time flies. So I really want to enjoy this and watch Jason Kelce, watch Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, even some of the other guys that are free agents this year. Isaac Seumalo, Miles Sanders, they've been through a lot with this team, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of playoff runs. And, I think those guys want to capitalize on the opportunity they have, just like this entire team does. All right, guys, wrapping up the show. Coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles, LOE 3, presented by BetOnline. I have 3 player prop bets that you should ride with in Eagles Giants. That's coming up on today's Friday edition of Locked On Eagles. Guys, today's podcast is sponsored by Built Bar. Looking for a delicious treat, but don't want all the fat and calories? Then you got to try a Built Bar. We just got through the holidays, and I know a lot of our goals, it's to eat a little healthier this year. If you're like me and you want to eat healthy, but you don't want to sacrifice taste, you've just got to hit up Built Bar. It is incredible. With Built, healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, these are so delicious. You won't even think they're good for you. Perfect for your New Year's resolution. What makes Built Bar so good? Well, for starters, they're actually covered in 100% real chocolate. Real chocolate. They taste like a candy bar. They come in some unbelievable flavors. Churro, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste, like I said, just like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better, like I said, they're healthy. Only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait around and get a box. You've been hearing us talk about ordering Built Bars at Built.com. Now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today, walk to the pharmacy section, and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. You'll thank me later. If you're close to a Sam's Club, run in and grab one of those 13-bar boxes of brownie batter and churro. Built Bar is delicious. It's tasty. It's healthy. And we thank them for sponsoring the Locked On Eagles podcast today. All right, Eagles fans, we're wrapping up this Friday edition of Locked On Eagles, and it's time now for LOE3, presented by the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network, Bet Online. Each week, Gino and I make 3 player prop bets for the upcoming Eagles matchup. We're going to try to make you guys some money every single week. Eagles Giants, Saturday night, 8:15, the divisional round of the playoffs. Doesn't stop the betting. Going to try to get the Eagles to the NFC title and win some money. Here are my 3 bets that I think you should ride with. And remember, if you bet with Locked On Eagles this year, if you took the bets that Gino and I went with, we were both in the positive. We both had if Gino didn't have a winning record like I did, subtle brag, but he was in the positive in unit shares because he went bold a lot of the time with some of these incredible odd bets that he nailed. you won money with Geno as well. So if you made bets with Locked On Eagles and at Bet Online, you made money. So here are the 3 bets that I'm riding with on Saturday night against the Giants. Number 1, I don't think A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith are going to have the most receiving yards in this game. I think it's going to be Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert to have the most receiving yards in this game combined between the Eagles and Giants. Right now, the odds are at plus 550. I just think you look at, not that I think Jalen Hurts is significantly injured right now with that shoulder, but I think the Eagles are still going to want him to get the ball out quickly over the middle, get into a rhythm. They're going to want to sustain drives. I think Dallas Goedert is so key for that. I think you're really going to see Jalen Hurts rely on Goddard in this game, and I think he has a really good matchup. Patricia Traina of Locked On Giants joined us on our Thursday show, and she kind of talked about how the Giants have really struggled with tight ends. So yes, Devontae Smith dominated the Giants the last time they played the starters. So too did A.J. Brown. But the Giants secondary has been better. Adoree Jackson and Xavier McKinney, they kind of erased Justin Jefferson last week. Not to say they're going to do that again against Brown and Smith, but their Achilles heel has been covering tight ends. And Dallas Goedert, outside of Travis Kelce, to me, is the best tight end in football. So to me, I think Dallas Goedert's going to have a massive game on Saturday. I think at plus 550, he is going to have the most receiving yards of anybody in this game. I'm going to hammer those odds at plus 550. Dallas Goedert, the most receiving yards on Saturday night between the Eagles and Giants. That's number 1. My second bet of the night for LOE3, I'm going back to my toxic trade. It's betting on Quez Watkins. It burned me a lot this year, but sometimes it actually did make us some money. I think I was, 3-5, 3-6 with Quez Watkins bets this year. I like to bet on Quez. You guys know he's my guy. I'm going to have Quez Watkins have more receiving yards than Daniel Bellinger, the New York Giants starting tight end. Watkins is at plus 110. Bellinger is the favorite to have more receiving yards than Quez. I just like the chance of Quez getting at least one deep bomb in this game against the Giants' weakest link of their secondary in the slot. I think Quez Watkins is going to have more receiving yards than Daniel Bellinger, plus 110. Going to go back to my toxic trait there with Quez. My third and final bet for LOE3 presented by Bet Online is Jalen Hurts over 53.5 rushing yards at minus 114. I just think that even with Hurts' shoulder injury, this is the playoffs. You have to win a championship. We've been talking this, the entire theme of this show has been to capitalize on opportunities for the older players, for the younger players. You never know when you're going to get back here and have this kind of opportunity where the playoffs runs through your home stadium. I think Jalen Hurts is going to go all out. There's going to be no safety here. Of course, he's going to take care of himself. He's going to slide. He's going to throw the ball away. He's not going to take an unnecessary shot to get an extra yard. He's not Carson Wentz or RG3 or Michael Vick. He's going to run out of bounds for sure. He's going to take care of himself. That's what Jalen Hurts does. But at the same time, he's not going to do what you saw last time he played the Giants, week 18, where they were just trying to do the bare minimum to get a win and keep him healthy. He was not nearly at 100% yet. He was banged up. Even Nick Sirianni said that, Hurts really had to overcome a lot of pain to play in that game for the Birds, but he knew the team needed him. He was sliding. I mean, there were certain moments where you knew Jalen Hurts would try to get 10 yards on a play, and he slid after 2. You could tell there were moments in the red zone where plays breaking down, he could have probably ran and scored a touchdown. He threw the ball away. You're not going to see that hesitation against the Giants. He knows this is an opportunity to win a Super Bowl. Banners fly forever. He's closer to 100% now as well. He's had another 2 weeks to recover from the shoulder. I think we're now, officially 6 weeks removed, and that's around the time frame it takes to heal this shoulder injury. I think the Eagles are going to not hold back. They're going to run him. They're going to do what they do. You can't protect Jalen Hurts in this moment. You just got to hope that he protects himself. I think he's going to do it, but he's going to be a weapon running the football. That's how you have to do it to utilize his full potential. To win these games in the playoffs, you need Jalen Hurts to run. I think he's going to do it against the Giants, and I think he's going to have over 53.5 rushing yards, which is Bet Online's current line for Hurts, minus 114. You can find all those bets at the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's Bet Online, where the game starts. That's going to do it, ladies and gentlemen, for another week of Locked On Eagles, playoff edition, Eagles-Giants tomorrow night in the divisional round of the playoffs. Enjoy the game. Let's hope on Saturday night I'm coming back to you on a live post-game show discussing, maybe crying about the Eagles getting back to the NFC Championship game. You can find Locked On Eagles on all podcast platforms and on YouTube as well. Make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you get the podcast. And on Twitter as well, follow us at Locked On Birds, at DiBiase, LOE. Once again, thanks as always for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Also, make sure you check out the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you the local insight you love to the national spotlight with daily conversations on the biggest NFL stories. Locked On NFL, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. As always, thank you for downloading. Thank you for watching and listening to Locked On Eagles. Enjoy the playoffs tomorrow. As always, let's go Birds.